Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Morley.
And today, Danny and I are tackling feeling inferior to others. I am hot off the press. I just got super triggered this afternoon. And so I just really want to break down what I experienced and how I really worked through it. Firstly, I want to say that when I got triggered, I went into a complete freeze and I felt everything activate and I could feel this like anxiety, panic all inside of my chest. And Danny had no idea that I was this triggered. And we were about to record something for TikTok. And I could feel my soul saying, like, you need to sit with yourself, Ellie, and you need to go into this. And then I could feel my program saying to me, no, you don't need to do it. Just get over it. Just do what you need to do right now. Like, just avoid this. And I've been really seeing how ginormous my programs of resistance and avoidance are. And when I said to him, like, man, like, I'm really still feeling this energy, you beautifully looked up at me and said, go into your pain, honor what is here, we can shoot later. And as soon as he gave me that permission, that's where I'm at. I'm just going to be honest. Like, that's where I'm at, where I'm like, oh, thank God, because like I am at a place where I'm really working and learning to go deeply into these programs of resistance, but they're so powerful right now. So I just want to say thank you to you for saying that, because that was like showing me, like, Ellie, like, step into your power and do what you need to do to make sure that you're okay and you're loving everything that's coming up. And so thank you. So here's the trigger. I got super, super activated today because someone that I deeply respect and someone that I greatly admire was put on the spotlight today, and it triggered the fuck out of me because it made me feel like I needed to protect and defend this person. And this person needs no defending or protection. And yet all I felt within me was like this big sister, like, I got to come and like make sure that like you're protected from me. And so I started with that energy of like, what is that? And why do you do that, Ellie? And the first layer that was shown to me was, I have to protect and defend someone that I admire because I don't want to feel what it feels like if what this person is saying is true. Because if this person that's coming for someone I greatly admire is true, then that means everything that I believe in, because I've made this person my everything. Let's just say like my savior. We do this thing of like putting people on like this godlike, high seat. And that's where I placed him. And I don't ever want to feel like he's wrong, because that means I have to feel the shakiness and the weakness within me. And I realize I protect and defend him because I project my weakness onto him instead of me feeling the powerless and weakness in me. And so when I went deeper into that, I was like, okay, let's go. What's the next layer of this? Because where does this powerlessness and this weakness come from? And what was shown to me and what really came was when I was 19, I went through a really traumatic religious experience. And I was following someone that I loved deeply in my life and what this person believed in. And every time I would question her beliefs, she would get very angry and defensive and protective of what she was spewing and telling me to believe, that I didn't have room to doubt her. And what I realized is I absorbed her programs of weakness and powerlessness because what she believed in was her everything. What the person that she believed in and kind of worshiped and looked up to was her savior. And the moment I questioned that, she felt she couldn't face the powerless and weakness within her. And so I absorbed that. And so I became the exact person that I didn't want to become. And that's now showing up right now as I'm being triggered by someone I greatly admire. And when I was going into it, I kept asking, like, what age is here right now? And the only age that kept showing up was my 19-year-old self that experienced this religious trauma. And she was like, don't go any deeper than me right now, because I'm the one that needs your love and I'm the one that needs your attention. And I started to feel what it felt like if I was wrong, if my beliefs weren't true, if this person that I put on a pedestal, if they weren't my everything, what would that mean for me? What would that mean for my life? And I could feel the anxiety come up again, because that means that I have to face why I rely on someone else to be my everything. And when I went deeper into that, my 19-year-old self was so scared, and I could feel like her rattling, because we had no base, we had no foundation, there was no ground underneath us. And the only person that was holding me up was this person that I greatly admire. And if he's questioned, that means that I have to face the nothingness and the emptiness within me. And so I sat there and I showed up for my 19-year-old self. And I had this beautiful moment where I was opening my heart to her, and I let her know, like, this is okay that we're feeling everything that we're feeling. Let's not shame and run away from the fact that we are powerless right now and we do feel weakness. These programs are here to be loved by us, to be honored. This trigger that came knocking on your door was an incredible window to see where you are lacking the power within. And truly having this moment with her where it's like, all you've learned your entire life was that everything you needed was outside of you. I grew up with someone in my family where Jesus was her everything. The Bible was her everything. Everything outside of her was her everything, because she was too powerless to face that without those things, there was so much pain and weakness that she had to look at, refuses to look at. And so when I was spending time with my 19-year-old, I had to remind her this was here to show us where we need our love and to find power within. And I cried, and I was so shocked at these tears that were coming out, because it's been so hard for me to access this part of me because I'm too weak to face this wound. And so being there with her and feeling like, let's grow the foundation right here. Let's be our base, so that when someone comes and attacks this person that you've made your all, that you stand in power, and you don't need to project any kind of powerless or weakness onto her or onto him, because you're becoming it yourself. And it was an insane healing for me. And I know that there are deeper layers, because I know this is much younger, because I was raised in a very strict Christian family. So I know there's a lot of layers to this one. But having that moment with my 19-year-old self and growing her light and just loving this weakness in me was extremely powerful for me. And I feel like we all do this in so many shapes, ways, and feeling inferior to others, and putting all this pressure on these people got to show up like this, when in reality it's like, what programs are playing out that you can't face that within yourself?
Yeah, beautiful share, beautiful share. Thank you, Ellie. And let's just break it down. Let's see where. So we started with a trigger. Something's being activated. You said you were feeling freeze in your body, that like freeze, pure anxiety, a lot of fear. So it starts with that. And then the next wave you move through is the resistance. So for anyone on this journey, you can't get back to that original wound if there's too much resistance there. So if the resistance showing up, that's what we have to, really deal with. And as the only way to really deal with that resistance is for you to have enough power within yourself to go into the pain. And this is exactly what we teach. This is what we coach people through, is how to connect back to that power, so that once they have that power, they can open themselves to the pain, whatever that may be. So now you've found the resistance, you've acknowledged it, you're seeing that you're wanting to avoid and just run away from what's really there.
Yeah.
And now the real work begins, the real journey, once the resistance layer is kind of dissolved and we're not listening to the mind anymore. We're listening to the heart. There's an inner child there. She's 19, beautiful, and she's showing up. She's scared. And the program here that we're talking about is Inferior, Superior. And that's why we named the title about feeling inferior, because when we feel inferior, we automatically make someone else superior. And when we become superior, we're automatically making them, whoever we're talking to, inferior from our self-righteous, high and mighty position of superiority. And this is something that most of us do in certain degrees, certain levels. And I'd like to get into that later on, where I've seen it show up in my life. But let's stay with this beautiful example that you've brought up. Now, one of the things that I was hearing there is like your 19-year-old self is scared. I heard her saying, "Am I wrong?" You know, because if whoever we're making superior, whoever we're admiring, if they're wrong, that means I'm wrong. Yeah. So I don't want to feel wrong. No one wants to feel wrong. So our ego shows up to defend ourselves. It attaches to this idea that someone is superior and they've got all the answers. And when it does that, it creates all this defensiveness. And our ego just jumps on board and is like, defend, 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 defend. Because the ego feels like it's being threatened in that moment. The ego feels like it's being made inferior. And this is how this program works: inferior, superior. And it's a program which can often run very unconsciously. You don't realize how subtle it is. Even down to, I noticed when I feel pity for somebody else, that's making them less than me. I realized that this emotion when I was back in the UK this last winter, this energy of, oh, I feel sorry for you, this pity, this, oh, you're clearly a little less than me, oh, bless them. That saying, oh, you're below me and I'm up here and I feel sorry that you're all the way down there. These are examples of how this inferiority, superiority can just weave into our lives without us even knowing it. Pity, we might think, oh, there's a level of empathy and compassion there, maybe, but there also might be a level of like judgment and superiority that comes through. So our ego attaches onto this idea that someone else is superior, and then it has to defend. Yeah, it has to defend everything, because in that moment, that 19-year-old girl has so much pain around feeling wrong, right?
Yeah. I literally, like, I have to protect him, because if I don't protect him, then he's going to get pummeled and he's going to feel weak. And it's like, no, you're going to feel weak and you're not going to like what's going to come up for you. And it's like, the gift in that is, why are you this I need to protect? In your mind tells you, oh yeah, girl, go in, protect, go defend, do your thing. And we think that's strength. And it's like, no, Ellie, why is this showing up for you in this way right now? Why are you behaving in this way? And it was like, because I don't want to feel if I'm wrong. I don't want to feel my weakness, because if I have to face that, then I have to face a plethora of a lot of other emotions that I'm not willing to walk into. And the moment where I was like, no, Ellie, it's time to walk into this, and getting to this place of, Ellie, it's about igniting the power within you so that you can stand strong, so that you don't have to waver. I felt like when I was protecting him, it was like, I felt like this like floppy, like dead flower. Like I had no roots. I had nothing. I was just going to fall apart in any moment. And then when I went in, I felt like the roots like starting to form. And it was like, no, baby, you can be a strong flower. And when the wind comes, you won't break apart. Like it'll flow through you. And that's what was missing for so long. And I've been doing this protective thing with so many people that I've put on a pedestal. So many.
Yeah, I run this program, and I know exactly what you mean. And there comes a beautiful time when this was something that I went through recently, was acknowledging and seeing that program of superiority, and then popping the bubble and allowing that godlike image that you paint certain people to be, and realizing, oh, they're just human, and they're like everyone else here. And while they might be more advanced in one thing, and they're still human. And yes, they may be advanced in all these different, whatever it is that you're making out someone to be a god, whether it's, for how good they are at a sport, right? We do it with sport. We do it with celebrities.
Yeah.
We do it. I worked in the service industry for a long time. We do it with people that have a lot of money. That was working at the Ritz-Carlton. It was like, oh, these people with all these money, we had to like treat them as gods. And I would spend a lot of my time at work feeling inferior, like I had to like bow down to the upper classes. And this whole class system that we built, this work that we teach, is here to tear all that down, and tear it down from the inside by really awakening to the fact that we're all humans here and we're all equal.
Yes. Literally, jumping off of that, I worked in the entertainment industry, and I still do, for almost 15 years. And I've spent the majority of my career worshiping celebrities, like literally putting them on a pedestal. And not to mention, everyone around you also puts them on a pedestal. So it's like, they are above us. We need to cater to them. We need to worship. And it's literally the most toxic, most bullshit thing ever. And I realized, like, every time you are running the program of superiority, you are not understanding that we are one. Like, when that program's playing, that's a big clue for you to go in, because when you heal that, you'll realize, oh, we are all equal. You can't get to we are all equal by just telling yourself that if you're running the program of superiority. Like, that's the doorway into going into oneness.
100%. And beautiful that you said that. However, the program of superiority is often completely unconscious. So while we're in this high and mighty self-righteous place, it's really hard to see that we're in that place from ourselves. The only way that we can really see that we're doing that is by getting reflected back to us that we're feeling inferior. Because it's when we're feeling inferior that the defensiveness, that the triggers, that all these uncomfortable feelings show up, and we make ourselves superior so we don't have to feel that. So as we're making ourselves superior, it's really hard for us to really see what it is that we're doing and showing up. That might not make sense to a lot of people. Does that make sense, Ellie? Did I explain that okay?
Yes, it makes sense. And also, I'll give an example. Like, every time I used to interview a celebrity, I used to walk out of the shoot and I would feel so low about myself. I would just feel so gross. And like, I couldn't pinpoint, like, I knew that it was because I was giving so much power away to them, but like, I couldn't pinpoint like what was actually running through me. And now that I'm on my journey, I realized, like, Ellie, it's because you were playing the inferior program big time, right? And you were also, you were just feeding their superiority program. And that's why when I would come out of these things, so feel into the energy of what you feel and get curious about it, because that low dense energy that comes up, right? Or that anger or frustration, those are all programs that are playing that are pointing to a deeper wound that's in there.
Great. So can you, because this is exactly what I was talking about, it's easy to remember a time when you feel inferior, and you can remember feeling inferior, but it's hard to recognize within yourself when you are showing up superior at the moment, in the moment, at the time. Can you remember any moments that you've done that?
Yes.
Were you aware at the time what you were doing?
No. Okay. I see what you're saying. No.
Yes. So superiority, we don't realize what we're doing at the time. It's only afterwards once we awaken to what program this is, we can understand, oh, I was showing up like I'm better than them now.
Yeah.
I can see that I was doing that, and I can only see that I'm doing that because I can feel what it's like to feel inferior, for someone else to act like they're superior. Or sometimes if we run this program, it's not even the case that someone else is acting superior. It's our own projection of this
Yes.
program which creates that reality. So this is something else that I felt, where someone that I deeply regard, I thought that they were showing up as superior. And in matter of fact, when I look back now, they weren't at all. It was just because I had this program within me, I had to make them superior because I was feeling inferior.
Mhm.
And it's not always the case that they are walking around like they're superior. It's just your perception that that program is running because you're feeling inferior. Therefore, whatever it is that we're talking about, whether it's someone showing up powerfully, this is how it happened in my life. Someone showing up powerfully made me feel like they were superior to me.
Mm.
Now, they might not be running that program at all. They might be, they might not be. But our projection of our own powerlessness, our own weakness, our own woundedness, our own ego creates that reality. And this is how we really create our own realities. That's why people talk about, like, your perception does create your own reality, because the programs that we run is how we see the world. And it's not until we awaken to the programs that we're running, we come back to our heart space, start to heal them, can we start changing the lens of what we see.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. Is it
Mhm.
also because superiority feels powerful, so that's why it's so unconscious?
I would say
Because
so, yeah.
yeah, that's what it is. Because inferiority, you can feel how like low you feel, but superiority feels like, oh yeah, like I'm the shit. I remember I booked this movie, and I was one of the leading characters, and I remember sitting in front. I was sitting at a table shooting with all of these extras, and they were talking to me, and I felt like I was such on my high horse. Like I was like, I'm better than you because I'm a lead character and you're not.
Mhm.
And that's how tricky superiority is. And
Yep.
it's gross when you reflect back on it.
When you finally see it and you realize the vibration that you were in, oh, it's horrible. And I've
Yes.
done it with this journey, this healing journey that we go on. The way that I was viewing it, I don't know when this stopped. Maybe there's still elements of this program, which I mean, I'm still working on it. I hope it doesn't leak into this work, but it can make you feel superior because now you're doing things and you're showing up better to the world. You're showing up more loving, more
Yeah.
compassionate. And that can feed into the unconscious program of, oh, because I'm doing all this work on myself, that makes me better than somebody else. No, it
Right.
doesn't. It doesn't. It's good that you're creating more love and you're creating less harm, but that doesn't make you a better person in terms of you have the right to be superior to them. You're not superior to them just because you're working on yourselves. And this is a trap that I've fallen into. Oh, anyone that does the work, oh, they're superior. And this is that program, and it's
Mm.
sneaky, just like most programs, and it will lie in your unconscious, ready to piss someone else off, because no one likes to be made feel inferior. So if you are running the program of any kind, oh, it's so triggering. Someone that I was visiting recently, an old friend, they made me feel really inferior. And it was really difficult to digest. It was really hard to feel. And at first I was like, why is this so hard to feel? Why is it? And after a while of processing, it was like, because this is part of your shadow that you haven't fully loved and
Mm.
accepted yet. You need to look at this. This is what this person is showing you. And every time that you show up in this superior way, this is how they feel. And it felt like shit. The big 5-letter word that it makes me feel is small.
Mm.
And that's one of my big wounds is like, yeah, when someone shows up superior or you're projecting in superiority onto somebody, either or, it makes you feel small.
Yeah.
And that's not powerful.
Yeah. And also, I want to ask you, because when I feel small, then I start running the program of like judging them, like trying to do everything to make them feel what I feel in my mind. So it's like I don't show up for love at all for myself or for them. I just go into they're making me feel like crap. They're making me feel really small, like F them. They're the worst. Look at them. Like I do a lot of judging. Does that make sense?
I do, but in a slightly different way. It's more from a place of, well, I would. It's this superiority. Well, I would never do such a thing like that to make somebody feel that low. And this is the ego showing up in its unconscious way, where it's like, oh, I feel like I have to get into self-righteousness and justify and be like, no, you would never do such a thing like that. You're far too evolved and you do all this work on yourself. You would never do that, would you? And inside, no, of course not. You're so good. Look at you. Yeah. And then it's like, yes, I do. Yes, you would. And that's just the ego jumping on and attaching itself. And it does this, I mean, when we're kids, we grow up and we make our parents everything. We make our parents the whole world because they are our whole world. When we're 6 months old, our whole world is dependent on our parents, especially our mother. Without them, we wouldn't be doing very well. We would be probably dying. So we grow up and we make our parents everything. And then we get to an age around a teenager and we start to look at our parents through a slightly different lens as we're maturing. And we say, that God, that I made you out to be, you're full of shit. You're hypocritical. You've got double standards. You say one thing and tell me to do it, but you do another. And so we have to shatter that whole framework that we made about them being a God. And our ego needed to make them a God to survive. It was a survival program that we created. And so it's natural for our ego to show up in the exact same way when we make someone superior. It's super common. Of course, it's going to do that. This is like what it's created to do. The ego is there to help you survive. But we're finally at a place as a humanity where we're ready to evolve out of our survival programs. We don't need to survive. I'm 30 years old. I don't need to make anyone a god for me to survive. I just need to start elevating beyond that and healing the wounds that are associated to it. And one thing me and Ellie always talk about is it's beautiful that she had this trigger today and everything got activated. But that was only one layer. It doesn't mean she's never going to run this program ever again. But it means that the next time she gets triggered, she's probably going to show up differently. Because then, when was the last time you got activated in this wound?
Exactly with this man that I greatly admire. And every time someone comes for him, I'm like out there in the front lines protecting and defending and I'll block people and I'll do all of these things. I find myself like commenting and being like, how dare you, and all of these things. It's like it constantly shows up. But today was the first time where like I really went into it and I was like, what is this? And why do you show up in this way? Because this man does not need you at the front lines, Ellie. So what are you actually projecting? What's going on within you? And that's when he showed up. She was like, it's been me and you keep avoiding me and you keep running away. And even when I was in there connecting with her, I could feel the programs of, okay, that's enough. All right, let's move on. Let's go eat dinner. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. And she was looking at me and she's like, you're going to leave me again, like you always do. You're going to avoid me again. And I sat in it and I was like, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to love all of this resistance and avoidance because this powerlessness program is so strong within me. And it's the reason why I show up so weak in so many situations. And I'm at a place right now in my life where I'm like, bring it on, because I'm ready to just go to the next place. I'm tired of being here and cycling in this. Okay, let me avoid and let me brush it off and let me do all this stuff. And my inner child needs me to show up and be there with her. And I'm done with suppressing her and constantly running to do anything but be with her. So I was so frustrated when I was triggered. And then when I went into it, I was so grateful. So grateful.
And she showed up 19 this time, right?
Yeah. And here's what it is, Danny. Like, I'm always like, this is another thing that a lot of us do is like, we're forcing it, like, okay, no, that's not the answer, like yelling at them, you know? And it's like, whoever's showing up is showing up because that's the age you need to love right now.
Mm-hmm.
And she was 19. And I was asking, no, younger, and nothing was coming through. Like, like I couldn't access younger. And it was only 19. And she's like, I'm here for a reason. And it's like, okay, let's do this together.
And often when we go into that older age, like there's so much emphasis around inner child, and there's a good reason for that. And that's because most of our core wounds are all created when we were children. But at the end of the day, what shows up shows up. And often by loving the age, whatever it may be, in your 20s, your teens, your 30s, a new age will then open up, sometimes in the healing as you're working through it. And sometimes or often it will be the next time you get triggered, instead of that 19-year-old, it'll be interesting to hear what age shows up, because it'll get younger and younger and younger till we get down eventually, after all the layers have been healed, to the core wound.
Yeah. You know, as I was going into this too, a lot of Christianity came up for me. And my mother is a pastor's child. I grew up in the church. I was at church Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the most of my life. And as I reflected and I was going deeper within myself, I realized all I've ever was taught was to put Jesus and the Bible on a pedestal. You know, they were quote unquote godlike. And it was just constantly avoiding finding that within me. And I feel like that was the first pedestal that was placed in my life, was Jesus and the Bible.
I mean, that's a huge one that I'm sure everyone can relate to. And the irony is, like, the true teachings of Jesus were that we're all the Son of God.
Yeah.
And this program of superiority just takes it over and is like, no, let's put this one person on the pedestal. Let's make them so perfect that it's unattainable for you to ever reach that level of perfection, because he was perfect and never sinned. And if you do anything that doesn't fall in line with that 100% unconditional love, Christ consciousness, well, then therefore you're a sinner and you must repent, or however that verbiage goes.
Yeah. And as I was going into that, I had a childhood friend pop up, and I realized, oh my God, he's so triggered by my healing journey because he's so Christian. And every time he watches one of my videos, he calls me and he's like, I don't like that video. And like, you shouldn't have that up, because he's doing what I do with people that I put on a pedestal, because Jesus and the church is on a pedestal. If you question that, he doesn't want to feel what he is without the church, what he is without his faith. And so he tries to bring me down because he refuses to face what it brings up within him. And so it was just a mirror reflection to what I do with one of my mentors.
Yeah. And it's that, everything you said there, it's that externalization of power, of like, the only way that you're taught in religion, and hey, I'm not saying I'm not an expert in religion, but from my understanding is, it's an externalization of God. It's this, oh, well, all of your power is outside of you, rather than tapping into the truth of who you are and finding that power from within.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And, my advice to anybody that's listening, if you run huge resistance and avoidance programs, start there. Love what is there. Don't, like, what we do is we resist the avoidance. Like, for me, like, every time that program, I hate it. I'm like, you won't allow me to go deeper. And then I just walk away from it, which is walking away from myself. But the moment where I'm like, all right, resistance, all right, avoidance, sit with me at this table. I am not going to let you play and not let me go deeper into myself. I'm going to invite you to sit with me as I go into this trigger, as I go into whatever you're trying to make me avoid, because you've played a huge part in my life. And I know you don't want your power to be taken away, but it's time. And the moment I start to bring love to those programs, like every time now I get triggered, they get weaker because they're dissolving back into love. And it's really powerful. And yeah, it's really beautiful to really understand what is here. Like we constantly are in resistance to what is. And the moment you see that you're running the program of resistance and all you can do is bring love and awareness to it, it won't be as strong the next time.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up something I spoke about in the past that I don't think you could fully grasp what I was talking about, but where you're on your journey now, I'm hoping you will. What you're talking about there is shifting this scale. Do you remember me talking about the scale? And there becomes a time where when you first start this journey, the scale is weighed to resistance and powerlessness. And the work that we teach at MSU is to tap back into your internal power and have the courage to face fear from a powerful place. And every time we do that, we're shifting these scales until at one point there's a tipping point where what happens when I get triggered now, Ellie?
When you get triggered, you go right in.
And I get excited. I get excited.
Yes,
I get excited because obviously there's definitely fear there, but there was enough power that had been built that the scale shifted and they're tilted the other way now. So when I get triggered, my first reaction is I need to go in and love this part of me. But when the scales are the other way, it's I need to run away from my pain because this is too much. I can't handle this. I'm not capable of healing this. I'm not connected to my power. I don't want this to happen to me. I don't want to feel this. Please take this feeling away from me. And there come on all the avoidance and resistance programs, eating to mask feeling the emotional pain. Huge common one. Playing video games, watching porn, going to the gym, meditating, even meditating if we're not dropping into the heart and feeling the pain and we're meditating to stay trapped in the mind, it's avoiding the pain.
Yep.
And so eventually, do you understand what I mean? And this
yes, I get it. I understand.
You're feeling the scale now shift. And that's when we're starting to really grab up and connect to our power. And eventually it just becomes second nature. I'm triggered. I immediately, the first thing I want to do is go in, drop into my heart, find out what pain's activated. Because deep down, there is always a child who is, or a teen, who is in need of love. And just imagine every time you're triggered, imagine if you saw a child and they were literally crying in pain. And you're just like, there's a child in your house and you're like, I can't deal with you right now. I'm just going to go play video games.
Yeah.
That's your child and they're crying. Even if it wasn't your child, imagine ignoring a child to go masturbate to porn in a room because you didn't want to feel the pain that they were going through. And that's where we're at as a globe. Is our inner children are showing up in need of love. And instead of facing it, we're so emotionally fragile and powerless that we're going to do something else. This is what I did it for years, my whole life till this work. And that's the freedom and the power of this work is that it allows you to be able to connect to that pain in a loving way. And you realize the fear, the powerlessness, it's all just energy. And it can be dissolved as soon as you're connected from within here.
Yes. It's just energy. And you can transform that energy. So why not bring love to it and watch what happens? It's magical, simple, so hard. But man, when you really start showing up for yourself in this way, for anyone who runs these programs of resistance and avoidance, like I understand you completely, but Danny's example with the scale, it's what's happening. Like because I went into this today, like really, like I was gung ho ready. I was like, let's go. When I got out of it, the first thing I said to you, I was psyched. I was like pumped. And I was like, this is the work.
Yeah. And however long it takes for somebody to get there, that's unique to them. You know, for some people, it's going to take a very short amount of time because maybe their soul is really ready for it. For other people, it may take longer because they've got a lot more trauma and they've got a lot more deprogramming to do and unwinding of their traumas and finding their power. And however long that takes is however long it takes. And each individual path is perfect and very unique, which is why we have a blueprint of what we teach, but everyone's individual healing journey and everyone's programs are very unique to themselves. And that's why we coach one-on-one in the best format. We do have group coaching offers, but we do coach one-on-one because that allows you to have a guide to get you to your own unique place of understanding how you are, like how you turned out the way that you turned out, why you are the way you are. There's nothing better than having that epiphany moment of like, oh, this is why I feel inferior to people my whole life. It's because of this moment. It's because this person made me feel small, and my whole life I've been feeling powerless because of this. And so I've been behaving in this defensive way. And this defensiveness, it comes up in relationships all the time. I remember one time, Ellie, this was a long time ago. It doesn't normally come out between us in our relationship, but it did come out one time, and it was to do with food. And I got concerned about dog food. And I got into this like judgmental superior place, and I got all defensive. And it was gross. I believe you called me out for it. Can you remember that instance?
Yeah, I was vegan for a long time, and I was feeding my dog vegan kibble. And when you heard that, you were like, how can you feed your dog vegan kibble? Like that dog needs meat and all of these things. And I felt so judged, and I felt so small and all of these things. And then you took some time and you came back, you're like, oh, I was running a bunch of programs, and you really recognized it. And in that moment, it's like when someone shows up responsibly and can speak from a place of, this is what I was running and this is why I was acting like that. It's like, there's no other thing I can feel but respect, And I'm like, and like, man, like that's really him showing up for himself, because it is hard for us to admit that we run these programs and we show up in the way that we do.
Yeah, I got super defensive. I think I can't remember the exact, if you like called me out for being judgmental. I think you might have said, no, you seem a bit judgmental. And I got really defensive about it. And then we ended the conversation. And as we're like walking away, I started to notice my ego justifying itself and like saying all these things, trying to make her in my head sound and feel wrong. And I was like, this doesn't feel loving. What is this that's showing up right now? And then when I, sat with the energy and pulled it under the microscope and did the work that we teach, I was like, oh, okay, I see what's going on right now. This superior, judgmental defensiveness part of me just came out because it needed a lot of this program we speak of about superiority is that I need to prove myself. Yes. I want to prove that I'm right. And in this situation, it's not that anyone was right or wrong, right? But it's the way that our ego just jumps on and attaches to things in order to feel superior. And when that program's in there, it will do that. So it can show up a lot in conscious partnerships, relationships. And just be very aware if you find yourself getting defensive and ask, I'm getting defensive right now. Feel into the energy. And I guarantee if you do enough work, you'll start to feel that the energy of defensiveness is gross. And you don't want to project that onto someone you're supposed to love. No way.
Yeah. It was a big day for me.
Today or that day? Today.
No, that day for speaking up and for really saying like, this is what it made me feel. And then also seeing how you showed up for yourself was like a huge mirror reflection of like how I definitely want to show up. And then back to today of really showing up for myself and going into it and spending time with that inner child that really needed me to show up. It was just powerful, man. That's why this work, why is it called the power within? Because it's the remembrance that it's all within.
Mm.
This is what we teach.
Yeah.
This work is magical. Magical.
Yep, it is magical. It completely transformed my life. And
yeah.
So if anyone's out there listening, we do have a membership group that's around, I forget the exact value, around $60 a month. With that, you're going to get a couple of live classes per month with Rachel Fiori and many of our certified coaches. We go in there and we do a live class every couple of weeks, and you can ask any questions you have. We talk about different wounds and healing and really elevated teachings. I'd highly recommend anyone listening that's interested to jump in that membership group. And then obviously, as we've mentioned, if you've listened to this podcast before, we have group coaching and one-on-one coaching with both myself, Ellie, and a whole army of certified coaches. We do relationship coaching as well. So if anyone's interested or they have any questions or a podcast topic that they'd love us to cover, Ellie and I are always looking for new topics to discover. Just reach out, find us on Instagram or TikTok. Reach out to us. We'd love to hear of a topic that you'd love for us to cover and break down, just like Ellie did amazing today and going into her trigger and finding her power.
Yes. Set up a free consultation with us, and you can learn more about everything that we offer at Master of Self University. Thank you so much for being here with us and for being a listener. Remember to subscribe, share, rate, review. And until next time, we will see you guys then.
Bye.
Bye.